If you've been going around the good old internet looking for the right podcast to fulfill your New York Yankees needs, well, I'll be the first to deliver the good news to you. You have found it. Here on Yapping Yankees with me, your host, Mike Scudero, you and I will be discussing the latest news, takes, and talk throughout the entire Yankee universe. Oh, and there may be some ranting on my behalf. Yeah. Anyway, what do you say we get to it? Let's get to yapping! Well, hello there, my fellow Yankee fans, and welcome to episode 216 of the Yapping Yankees podcast, where we yap about the Yanks and nothing but those Yanks. As always, I am your host, Mike Scudero, here on April the 14th, 2024. Oh, God. Well, in case you couldn't tell by my somewhat raspy voice here. Yeah, getting raspy voices. 16 games into the season. That's where we're at right now in the Scudero household. Doing good, Mike. But in case you couldn't already tell by the somewhat raspy voice, I'm coming at you basically right after the game ended. It is early in the evening. I'm starting taping earlier than usual because I usually don't start till around like 6:30 or 7, but it's now in the mid to late 5 o'clock hour because I figured I'd come at you right when my thoughts are fresh. But what a game it was today. My gosh. Unfortunate loss today. But don't get me wrong, this episode is actually going to be mostly positive because that's the way it should be given the circumstances, but especially because I shouldn't hide anything. I mean, I really can't hide anything. My voice is a little screwed up as it is to start the show already. But while it is, I figured I might as well just address today's game while we're at it, but my goodness. In case you couldn't tell by my voice, what an amount of energy I exerted on this afternoon's game, the final game in Cleveland. Unfortunately, as we know, the Yankees walked away with the loss. Very upsetting. I know that I've said this in the past, but I usually have an easier time dealing with losses when, it's just another loss. It's like it is what it is, it happens. But fewer things aggravate me more than self-inflicted losses, and that is definitely what happened today. Now, don't get me wrong. Alongside this loss, as I've said, there are plenty of positives as well. But in games where the Yankees defeat themselves, those are the ones that really get to me, and it takes me a little longer than usual to calm down after than after a typical loss. And the Yankees did definitely, unfortunately, defeat themselves in the bottom of the 10th today in Cleveland. They definitely had the series sweep within their grasp, completely and utterly, and they just let it slip away. Those are the ones that annoy me. Caleb Ferguson pitched in the 10th inning, and other than a soft-ish line drive to center field and then Fry, who really got a hold of one to left center, he was unfortunately really a victim of his, and this has been a little bit of a problem the last few days, but his infield defense. Now, it's been really interesting because Glaber and others, Rizzo and even Oswaldo here and there, he's made his mistakes occasionally, but they've had a lot of trouble gripping the baseball lately. And I know today in the 10th inning it started to rain a little bit, so maybe things were a little wet, tougher to grip. I know, but to pretend like it hasn't happened in drier conditions as well would just be lying. I mean, it's been happening quite a bit lately. And it's been a little bit of a problem, and it reared its ugly head again in the final inning, the 10th inning of today's game, and it resulted in the Yankees losing. Now, the man in the center of it is none other than Gleyber Torres, who it's getting tough to hide at this point, or tough to, not necessarily hide, but to excuse, I guess, is the better term to use. And I'm a Gleyber defender, primarily. I am. I've spoken many times about how overall I tend to be a fan of his, even though he has his times where he definitely makes his boneheaded mistakes, which he does decent amount of the time, I would say. And today was unfortunately another showcase of that. He's had some problems defensively, but usually the difference between today and in the past with Gleyber Torres is that usually when his defense has gotten a bit shoddy in recent years, even at second base, which it tends to be at times, it's usually excused at least somewhat by his offensive production. Now, the unfortunate thing is that to start the season through the first 16 games here, yes, it's still early. Yes, he could still bounce back and all that. But to start the season in the first 16 games, the difference between now and then is that I cannot even do that for Gleyber Torres in order to vindicate him of his defensive woes, because his offense is yet to get started really either, except for a hit here and there occasionally. So he doesn't even really have that to defend his lack of action. I was going to say actions of late, but there hasn't really been much action. So lack of action of late. And that makes the defensive mistakes even more glaring. And people are really focusing in on him. And it's unfortunate for him. The pressure's definitely on right now. And errors do happen. But when they happen as frequently as they have lately, and you're not doing anything else really to make up for it, that's when it becomes a little bit of a problem. Now, that's the contrast between Gleyber Torres and his other fellow infielders, because Anthony Volpe happens to be one of the better hitters in the entire sport right now, and yes, he did share in the defensive mistake in the 10th inning as well with that little bobble on the attempted double play turn, but the difference is that that bobble would not have even had an opportunity to happen in the first place if Volpe himself did not already get an epic game-tying RBI double in the 9th inning to tie the game off of one of the sport's best closers. So these are where you say, listen, it happens. At least he's doing a lot of other things to pick up for it, and he's been an incredible force in the lineup so far. So that's why you give Volpe far more of a break than someone like Gleyber Torres right now. Same thing even with Rizzo. The strange thing with Rizzo right now is that he seems to have lost most ability this year, bafflingly so, to scoop a ball. Now, the infielders have to make better throws, of course, as well. The first baseman shouldn't always have to worry about scooping damn near everything out of the dirt. But he should be expected to do it at least every now and again and have his infielders' backs. This seems to be a thing that has been lost a bit early on here with Anthony Rizzo, as he has dropped a lot of scoops, a couple more today. But the difference is with Rizzo as well is that he has come up with his big hits of late. He had a nice day yesterday. Today he had a huge hit in the top of the 10th inning to put them back in front after Anthony Volpe epically tied the game in the 9th. Then in the 10th inning, with the bases loaded, Rizzo roped one down the right field line, scoring the go-ahead 2 runs. So, like I said, other things are being done. Do I even need to mention Oswaldo Cabrera down at third base and what he has done offensively? I think not. We have talked about it quite enough already. So, that's the difference here. And my intention is not to pile on to Gleyber Torres. I'm pretty sure he feels a chunk of the blame for today's loss himself. He doesn't need me to pile on. But it does need to be mentioned at least a little bit. Because to say that he has not gotten off to a really bad start so far would just be straight up lying. So I do have to say Gleyber Torres has gotten off to a really rough start. He really has. It's been really annoying to watch. His defensive mistakes are very frustrating. And I do hope he gets it going offensively eventually. I really do. Just got to start getting on base first and foremost. Just start having better, smarter at-bats. That's where it begins. Start making more solid contact. Because that's the difference with someone like Judge as well. Someone who has been mostly struggling and people continue to get on him and are concerned about him for some reason. As if he wouldn't be absolutely phenomenal eventually as long as he stays healthy. I mean, come on. It's just a matter of patience. I mean, today was a sign that he might be starting to come around a little bit. Timing maybe improving a little bit. But not too many signs out of Gleyber Torres, and that's the difference. And also people are focusing on him a little bit more because of the obvious as well. We've mentioned this plenty of times too. It is a contract year for him. He's finally going to be up for free agency after the season is over, so he might be pressing a little bit. You don't know. We have no idea, really. Could just be a slow start. That's happened with plenty of athletes in the past, and plenty of their seasons could be just another instance of that. Regardless, though, it has been very, very annoying and frustrating to witness. Just like that 10th inning was. Because, again, there are really few things in sports that irritate me more than when a team beats themselves. Errors happen, I get it. And I've since calmed down since the very end of the game. It's been about an hour since the game ended, give or take, something along those lines. And if I would have started recording right away an hour ago, you'd probably be hearing a slightly different, more emotional mic, and I might have been slightly more irrational, but I've started to calm down a little bit, and that's why I figured now would be a good time to fire up the microphone for Yapping Yankees here today, while my thoughts are still fresh, yet I'm somewhat rational again. So that's why I chose now to start recording, but my God, I'm still sad about that loss. Now, the positives The Yankees still won the series. They are one of just 3 teams remaining in the sport as of yet that are yet to lose a series early on here. So the series victories continue. So keep on racking up those series W's, man, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. But the thing that's upsetting is that, again, with a self-inflicted loss, when you have a potential series sweep on the road, no less, right within your grasp and you just let it slip away, it is aggravating and it's irritating. So I am not going to pretend like I am completely okay with today's loss because it was very aggravating and I'm still at least a little upset about it. But also, you walk away with the series win, still plenty to be happy about, even about today's game alone. And you move on to Toronto next. Get the clown on the Blue Jays some more in Rogers Center too. How about that? I can't wait. But the positives. Definitely some to go around. The fight in this team continues. I even spoke about this on sort of a mini rant for a segment for one of my good friends. You may know her. Her name is Danny Sapola. She does her own show, Danny's Dugout. And she was kind enough to feature me on her Danny's Dugout mini rants. I actually did one this past week, earlier on in the week. And I had mentioned that the difference, and I'd mentioned this on the podcast already here, but I'll mention it again. I had mentioned how much more the 2024 Yankees' grit, determination, resolve, and never quit behavior has really hit me differently than any other team in the past, because you cannot tell me that the 2023 Yankees would have handled a lot of these games even remotely similar. Like today's game, that Florial 8th inning home run off of Luke Weaver, the 2023 Yankees, and many of the Yankees teams prior to that in the recent past as well, would have immediately folded after that. Immediately, the game would have been over, especially because of the poetic injustice on the Yankees' behalf of Florial having the potential last laugh after doing little to nothing with the Yankees, even though he never got really consistent opportunities, some will argue, and they're not totally wrong. But still, only one home run really hit with the Yankees, and really didn't get the opportunity to, / even when he did not do much with the Yankees at all. And then with the final game of the series in Cleveland on the line, hits a home run when the Yankees are an out away from escaping the 8th inning unscathed. Hits a big solo shot off of Luke Weaver to give the Guardians the late lead for Emmanuel Clase to come in the 9th inning and close the door. And the interesting thing is that it also happened in a way where, Estevan Florial, known to never be able to hit a breaking balls in his entire life, breaking pitch, off-speed stuff, has always had a lot of trouble with that. Don't give the guy a fastball in his wheelhouse. What does Luke Weaver and Jose Trevino do, though? Call for a fastball, and Weaver puts it right in his wheelhouse, and he hits it for an absolute golf shot into right field. Absolute bomb. And gives the Guardians the lead. But again, my original point, being another big positive about this team, is their resolve. They never stop. The game is never over until it is actually over. The Yankees had this mindset for a long time and have strayed far from it in recent years, but they have retrieved it in 2024. Anthony Volpe, who has been... is there a word? that have not mentioned in the early going here? He has been jaw-dropping. He's been phenomenal. Even the outs he makes are hard hit. And even despite his extreme success so far, one could argue, and even Boone said this in the postgame, and he is correct, that he is also hit into a certain degree of bad luck even. Because even his outs are usually hard. They're tough. He gives good at-bats. He's still getting on base a ton. And even against one of the sport's best closers, off a 100-mile-per-hour cutter away, he still manages with that beautiful new leveled swing of his to reach out, not try to do too much with it, stay inside, beautiful leveled swing, takes it to right center field, and ties the game at 5 in the 9th inning. Down to their last out. That's the difference with the 2024 Yankees. They may have lost the game in irritating fashion ultimately, but the fight that they still show, how the pitching still did for the vast majority of the time, especially the bullpen. I know a lot of people have depth concerns, but how they still continue to do is still very nice, regardless. and how they've still managed to win yet another series is still very encouraging for me. And I choose to look to that more so than some dumb mistakes at the end, however irritating they may be. And I just hope they bounce right back in Toronto, because then it'll mean even less. It's just another loss. It happens. You move on. So I'm choosing to err on the side of positivity today, which some people on social media will still just continue to neglect that I occasionally do, and still just accuse me of being constantly negative and complaining while I live tweet, even though the very concept of live tweeting is tweeting in live time and having live time potentially emotional reactions. Some people just have that concept just fly right over their heads. But to pretend that I do not err on the side of positivity whatsoever is just plain lying. But you'll still have your couple of idiots out there who will claim that I do not err on the side of positivity ever, and I'm always finding something to complain about. Most live tweeters do, because a lot of live tweeting revolves around that. Because there's a good mix of good and bad. And usually when you're emotional, something bad happens. That might be a little bit more prevalent over something good happening, depending on the circumstances. So, regardless of all of that, after having racked up another series win, I'm choosing to focus on that. And if they manage to move on and do the same thing against Toronto at Rogers Center the next 3 days, I will continue to err on the side of positivity primarily. There will, of course, be the things that I'm not happy about, because there's usually always at least something to pick at regardless. But as long as the overarching idea is positivity, especially after something like this, that's what's important, because there's still plenty of good to look at. I mentioned the good, I mentioned the bad, and I would say that there's more good, even though we can still very well talk about the bad. Because you can still do that. You're allowed, believe it or not. I allow everyone to do everything here. Doesn't matter. But there's a lot to say about the 2024 Yankees so far, guys, and after another series win, it's definitely been really, really nice just looking back and seeing what they've accomplished this year so far. We're only 16 games in. I know it's early. But at a 12-4 record, would have been nice to be 13-3, obviously, but 12-4 is still damn fine. It's the best record in the sport still, so I will gladly take it. But you look at the things they've been able to accomplish early on here. I mean, they're the first Yankee squad to start 5-0 since 1992. They were 8-2 through their first 10 games. Tied for the best record in the league there, and now has the best record officially of anybody. And they've had the best record since they had beaten the Marlins for the second time the other day and advanced to 10-2 at the time. Also just being the fourth Yankee team to start 10-2 in their history, the others being in 1922, 1949, and 2003. And obviously now I just mentioned they're 12-4. And bear in mind that throughout all of this, even if you want to mention the negatives or the positives regardless, they are 12-4 without Garrett Cole, without Judge having fully kicked it into gear as of yet, primarily those two things, and even with many of the other substantial injuries that they may have on the roster so far, bullpen or otherwise. Loizaga, Canely, since when he's healthy, he happens to do very well. If you want to look to the lineup, you have DJ being out, depending on how you feel about him, but they still have some pretty big names hurt right now. That's the point. And primarily, again, without Garrett Cole and without Judge having fully really kicked it into gear as of yet. I know he hit his big home run today, and that's a big step forward, and hopefully that helps him going ahead, but still, it's without any of these things really having fully kicked in or having been there at all, which makes it all the more incredible. These are the things that I'm still hanging my hat on early on here. And the season will continue to zip by, because it always does. Even the fact that 16 games have already gone by is still crazy to me. So, it'll continue to go fast like it always does. 162 will come and go. Not to feel like I'm rushing time at all, because I'm not. I want baseball to last as long as humanly possible. But it will continue to go quickly. And as it continues to day by day, these are the things that I measure every single day. So that's my perspective. If you're expecting a huge rant as of today, well, then you're probably not going to get one. I'm certainly upset after that loss today. I'm tired of watching the infield not being able to handle a baseball lately. It's like there's grease on it. Butterfingers out there, all around. But it happens. As long as things are going very well right now, still, that's what I'm just going to hang my hat on. One thing I will leave with, though, is something that I've already said. I do think Gleyber Torres has got to start to kick it into gear at least a little bit soon. I'm trying to be patient. I will continue to be patient for quite some time more. I don't know if it's the contract year making him feel pressured. I don't know if it's just being off to a slow start in general. I don't know what it is. All I know is that the last couple of years, the offense has definitely taken significant steps forward, and I find it hard to believe that as long as he is healthy, that it would take this much of a step back from one year to the next. So hopefully it's just a matter of starting slowly, and maybe some of the pressure's eaten at him because he knows he might have to perform better than past years since it's a contract year. Regardless, Gleyber has got to get it going. Even if the infield mistakes are going to occasionally continue, there needs to be at least something else to redeem his game. And as long as there is nothing else, then those infield mistakes, sometimes those boneheaded ones that just really feel like he's not paying attention and the focus isn't there, as has been quite repetitive throughout his young career. I mean, not really even that young anymore. He's been around a while now. But still, regardless, as long as there are little to no other redeeming qualities about his game to start here, then people are going to keep on getting on his ass. That's just what's going to happen. Like I said before, people might be quick to mention, oh, Volpe had a mistake too. Oh, yeah, he did in the 10th inning. He did. And he even owned up to that in the postgame. I heard his press conference. Or his interview, rather, with the media. But think of how many other things he's doing to absolutely redeem that. I mean, like I'd also mentioned before, that doesn't even get the chance to happen if he does not unbelievably and epically tie the game in the 9th inning off of one of the game's best arms in Emmanuel Clase. Again, on an away 100-mile-per-hour cutter. It's just unbelievable. But what an eventful weekend, guys. I hope you're doing well despite all that. Quite an emotional carry my heart in my sleeve intro there despite my messed up voice. Hope you enjoyed it. But what a weekend. Yesterday was awesome. Full day of Yankees baseball, 12 o'clock game, 6 o'clock game, getting the W in both. Having a mostly very fun series against the Marlins as well. Just keep winning those series, man. Just keep winning those series. And amidst it all, I hope you guys have been well. Hope you guys had a good week. Another one wrapped up. Cannot believe we are in mid-April. The weather's getting nicer and nicer. I know the rain has still been around a bit, and that's a pain. But tomorrow, Monday, here in New York, it's supposed to hit nearly 80 degrees. That is my heaven. Even warmer than that. I'm a heat psychopath. Give me all the heat. All of it. Make it 95 degrees out. Yes, I am that insufferable with the heat. I hate the cold that much. You should know this by now. Especially if you've been with me for a while. But guys, we got plenty to talk about today still. Actually, not as much news as last week. Well, it'd be weird if there was much news as last week, because last week we had 2 weeks worth of crap to talk about. But this week there's only 1 week, so of course, not as much news necessarily as before. Got some injury stuff, but mostly just roster stuff, especially after yesterday's doubleheader when the rosters expand to 27 for that, and then you got to make your moves after that's done and whatnot. But first off, starting on Monday the 8th, a couple of moves, like I said, that we should anticipate after last weekend. I did say look out for some potential roster moves come Monday, and that is exactly what happened. First off, the Yankees had signed Josh Maciejewski to a major league contract and selected him to the active roster. They had optioned Jake Cousins to AAA, which was to be expected, I guess, and they ended up DFAing Clayton Andrews, the left-handed pitcher they acquired a couple of months ago. So, definitely a quick move there to help out with the bullpen depth, and that it did. Later on in the week, going into Game 2 for yesterday's doubleheader, because Friday night was, of course, rained out in Cleveland, the Yankees made a slew of roster moves. A ton of stuff happened before Game 2. First off, it started with reinstating McKinley Moore from the 15-day injured list and optioning him down to AAA. They outrighted Clayton Andrews off the Major League roster and into AAA as well. He was not picked up after being DFA'd. They placed John Birdie on the 10-day injured list retroactive to the 11th with a left groin strain. And Boone had claimed that it happened when he was running down to first trying to leg out that hit, and It's really weird. Came out of the blue completely. It's a shame this happens very shortly after the trade. They really weren't getting much out of him offensively with the exception of a couple of hits here and there. But obviously he was helpful with the depth down at third, but it was tough to see Oswaldo sitting for a few days because he proved yet again here in the Cleveland series that you just cannot sit bro down. He's too hot right now. So, honestly, not to be cruel, because I don't want to be cruel, because I hate hearing about injuries regardless of who it is, but for the people out there who are worried that John Birdie would take any additional at-bats away from Oswaldo, well, you need not worry about that anymore, because bro is on the injured list. Unfortunately for Birdie, of course. You never want to hear about injuries. But it's weird because I never really even saw it happen on the field. I never really saw any specific indication that he was in pain or that he might have tweaked something. But, hey, the announcement came out and that's what it is. So 10-day injured list retroactive to the 11th. So he's eligible to be on the injured list for about another week with that left groin strain. And in turn for additional infield depth since that happened. Obviously, DJ's still down and Peraza's still down and now Birdie's down. So the infield depth has taken some hits injury-wise, so they signed Kevin Smith to a Major League contract, who we saw a bit of in spring training. They selected him to the active roster for additional depth, and they ended up designating Maciejewski for assignment right after they had signed him to the Major League contract to help out with the bullpen earlier in the week there. Now they DFA'd him before heading into Game 2 roster-wise, and in turn they had recalled Ron Marinaccio from AAA, and right away I was like, uh-oh, because we remember how cooked Ron Marinaccio was, and we saw a little bit of that again, unfortunately, later in Game 2, despite the Yankees' massive lead. And again, I don't mean to nitpick, but we definitely did not see too many good things out of old Ron again, and it just further reinforces what I said about him, and many others have said about him, that they just got to look into how this guy fell, because it is just one of those anomalies that is just beyond comprehension or reason of any kind. I mean, it's still a mystery to me how someone could collapse so spectacularly as Ron Marinaccio did and still show that they just don't belong on a Major League roster, even after all the success they had at one point. In the recent past. It's not like it happened 10 years ago. It happened a couple of years ago he was very successful. Top arm out of the bullpen. Not many more were trusted more than him. And he still showed me certain signs in that ninth inning, despite having a monstrous lead in Game 2, that he still does not belong on a Major League roster. It's crazy. And the Yankees had also appointed Cody Poteet as the 27th man for the doubleheader, of course. And obviously after the game, they returned him to AAA once the doubleheader had concluded. But what a start for Poteet, man. And what a journey, obviously, he's had in fighting his way back to the major leagues. It was his first major league win, they'd said on the S Network yesterday. It was Poteet's first major league win in 1,056 days, amidst his terrific start, which we'll get to later. And we're talking about recap in just a few minutes. But, my God, that's amazing when you think about that journey back. First win in that long, and to think how amazingly he pitched. Phenomenal game. And then today, the last piece of news really already, I know it's quick, but it was reported on the S Network prior to the game, primarily by Meredith Marakovitz, that DJ could apparently, shortly after the upcoming Toronto series starting tomorrow, shortly after the Toronto series, it was said that DJ could actually possibly be getting ready to start a rehab assignment. So that would mean that timeline-wise, if that were to play out this way, that DJ could possibly be back in the next couple of weeks. I mean, that is pretty soon. And that's good for DJ. But the Yankees are faced with a bit of a positive problem here. And by positive problem, I mean these are the problems you want to be stuck with, because it's not necessarily a bad thing. But it is still a problem nonetheless because of sort of a logjam. Someone sort of being blocked that you never really expected to have this problem with. Prior to the season, DJ was expected to be the third baseman. Obviously, then in spring training, he fouled off that ball off his foot and everything changed. And they said, oh, well, we'll get by with Oswaldo Cabrera pretty much at third base. And especially because of how he was for the most part in 2023, despite how much we love him as a person, I don't think any of us expected a fraction of the success we've witnessed to start the 2024 season here out of Oswaldo, despite how much we love the guy, especially considering how much he struggled for the vast majority of 2023. But Oswaldo has, of course, been tearing the cover off the baseball far beyond anyone's expectations. And now this presents a bit of a positive problem. Again, it's positive because Oswaldo has brought about a lot of good in the lineup. He has been a primary source of success as far as who to rely on when they come up to bat. But this creates an unexpected issue as far as what happens when DJ returns. Does DJ ride the bench for a while until somebody cools off? Are you forced to sit Oswaldo? Right now, I wouldn't. I'm not sitting a bat as hot as his. Do you maybe consider doing something with Gleyber if he continues to struggle as vastly as he is? Or do you just say, nah, Glaber's too big a part of the team. You got to just let him keep getting his reps and have him figure it out? Do you maybe give Anthony Rizzo less playing time? He's been struggling a little bit at defense at first base. I don't. I think he'll figure it out defensively. The guy's a multi-time Gold Glove winner. He's a Platinum Glove winner. And he's actually been getting some massive hits on offense, like I said before. Some big hits in some big spots. So it's really tough to disrupt what's going on right now. Honestly, if Oswaldo stays on this pace, you really can't sit the guy. You really cannot. So right now, as of who's performing, the easiest one to sit at this very moment, I'm not saying that he's not going to bounce back going forward or that this is definitely the right answer. But as of this moment, the person to give less playing time to until he figures it out a little bit more is Gleyber Torres. And you could put DJ at second and then have Oswaldo stay at third, or you could put Oswaldo at second and move DJ to third where he was originally supposed to be, if this is the route that you go down. But if it's not the route you go down and you're kind of stuck, DJ might have to ride the bench for a little bit, because DJ doesn't have an automatic merit to get back in the lineup either, because since he re-signed in 2021, as much as I love the guy, it has been no secret that he has just continued to decline and he is not getting any younger. He can't really prove himself in 2024 to be any better than the last 2 or 3 years if he's not getting any playing time, so that's where the complication comes in again. So that's a problem. It's a bit of a logjam here with Oswaldo being as great as he is, but Oswaldo being as great as he is what makes it a positive problem. So it's definitely going to be very interesting here to see how individual performances progress or don't progress over the course of the next couple of weeks leading up to DJ's return, because it's kind of tough to say what the right answer is as of this moment. I'm not really sure. All I know is that if Oswaldo is playing the way he is not the one I'm putting on the bench for DJ. That's all I know. I'm continuing to remain patient with Gleyber, but right now it's still tough. I want to give him at least another couple of weeks. And even beyond then, that's still pretty early. You're only talking about until like May-ish, a little bit before May. That's still very early to just write somebody off like that for the year. So it's difficult. It's very, very difficult, because if Oswaldo was out there just barely getting by or actually being really bad, well, then obviously putting DJ back into that lineup becomes a lot easier. And the answer is a lot more automatic, and it's a given, but now it's not a given. Now you actually have to think a little bit about what to do. This does present a bit of an interesting, again, positive problem here, so we'll continue to talk about it as DJ's return draws more and more near as the weeks continue, but if that timeline comes to fruition, we could be seeing DJ sooner rather than later. Starting a rehab assignment potentially shortly after this upcoming Toronto series. I mean, there is certainly no rush, especially when it comes to a team like the Yankees and how well they're doing to get DJ back. But it also typically does not take a hitter too long, or doesn't mandate too long of a rehab assignment. I mean, depending on how long they were out. But in DJ's case, I imagine his rehab time probably won't have to be crazy long. I mean, it's tough because he doesn't have a regular season at bat yet, but he played damn near all of spring training. But he has been riding the bench for a little while now. He did accompany the Yankees on this road trip, so he is around. They showed him in the dugout plenty during this weekend in Cleveland, but we'll probably won't need too long once the rehab assignment officially begins, so we're going to see what happens. All I know is that while I'm not officially saying sit Gleyber right now, that's not what I'm saying at this point in time. He could end up heating up, and I hope he does. It'll just make it all the more complicated if he does. But hey, again, good problem to have. But you cannot sit Oswaldo right now, especially. That is just a non-starter. Just can't be doing that. So that's really all the Yankees news for this week, guys. Again, a little bit less so, especially because we only have a week's worth of news to cover. But nonetheless, there is just one more quick thing I wanted to hit on, and this was a subject that I had brought up last week and actually spent a lot more time on than I had originally planned, but it's worth it because it is a big enough issue in Major League Baseball right now, and it has to be addressed because it just continues to be a problem. The whole pitcher injury epidemic, as I called it on last Sunday's episode, and as many others have come to call it as well because it is true. I wish I could tell you that this past week featured anything less than what we spoke about last week with all of the injuries heading into last Sunday's episode within just days apart of each other, Jonathan Loaisiga being one of them. And these are no short-term injuries. Bad elbow injuries, many of which, the vast majority of which, if not all, are resulting in necessary UCL repair surgeries, which immediately, as we all know, whether it be Tommy John or not, mandates being shut down the rest of the year. And unfortunately, a couple of others joined the pack as far as elbow issues this past week, mainly earlier on in the week on Monday and Tuesday. Framber Valdez of the Astros and Nick Pivetta of the Red Sox also both went down with elbow injuries as the epidemic continues. And of course, later on in the week, it was announced that Spencer Strider, who we spoke about last week on last Sunday's episode 215, it was announced that he will officially be going down for the rest of the year. Just to add on to the list of being next to all the others experiencing the same thing. I mean, if you want to hear my thoughts on it, just listen to last week's episode. I don't want to sound like a broken record and repeat myself yet again on my opinions on this matter, but I'll just reiterate the basic thing. Major League Baseball's got to figure this out. There are a lot of potential problems it could be, and it could be a little bit of everything, and that would only complicate it if it really is a little bit of everything. But you have the fact that pitchers use little to no grip help at all anymore, which could definitely mess things up as far as trying to get even a more harsh grip, and the stress that it is on the arm on top of that to throw as hard as the guys are doing, and just throwing hard in general, harder than they used to. You have people throwing around ideas with the pitch clock. I personally think that the lack of additional grip help, not saying that they should allow anything preposterous like the sticky stuff to the point where you could barely even take the baseball out of your hand, not saying that, but a little bit of help ain't hurt nobody, and it's not anything that has been happening in baseball for well over 100 years now, pitchers using some sort of help in some area. But I definitely think that might have a little bit more to do with it, but people are throwing around ideas of the pitch clock. People are even talking about and making good points about how things go down in youth ball, with how these kids, and Justin Verlander, as I said last week, shed some good light on this in an extended interview that he did with the media, that down in youth ball, they're encouraging these kids very young, 10, 11 years old, to throw as hard as they can, teaching them to throw all these crazy complex pitches. We know how many different pitches are available to be thrown nowadays and still being invented as time goes along that results in all these crazy different motions for the arm to do and just to put more stress on it. And these kids are being encouraged to do all this while throwing as hard as they can, starting from young. And I mean, that proves it because how many young starting pitchers or even relief pitchers, how many pitchers in general do you hear that come into the league as young as 21, 22 years old, and nearly all of them have had at least one Tommy John surgery already? It's outrageous to think that could have happened that young already. Hell, one of my brother's friends, he was a big time into travel, Little League, and now he's playing in college. A couple of years ago, after he was pitching for a while, he almost had to get Tommy John surgery. He was like 17 or 18 years old. Had a slight tear in his UCL already. So the people pointing fingers to youth ball as a potential part of the problem, I can't disagree with you. I cannot. So it's just a myriad of potential issues here that the league really has to look into. Just conduct extensive studies into this thing because this crap just cannot continue. It's every week, guys. Again, this past week, Valdez and Pivetta now. And it's going to keep happening. I hate it. I hate to hear about it. And it is a massive problem that this sport has faced and is still yet to find any sort of solution to. And it's tough to find one. You tell guys to change how they pitch, there's going to be some major ramifications and effects on the sport and offense and how much more they get to pitchers, the big adjustment period that'll take place. It's a very complicated issue, but this is why the league is employed to do what they do. They got to figure this out. They have to. It's not good, man. The conditioning of these guys, they got to figure it out. League officials, doctors, just official experts in these areas, they got to congregate and just throw some ideas around as to how to fix this crap. It's too much. Got to put a stop to this. You have to. Almost every major arm in the game is down, it feels like. You remember all the names I read out to you on last week's show? It's ridiculous. So if you want to hear more extensive talk about that, just listen back to last week's episode. I don't want to go too much further into it than I already have. But nonetheless, guys, that was the news from this past week and just my thoughts about takeaways after today's tough loss and how I'm feeling about the team overall. But an entire week's worth of baseball did take place this past week outside of just today's game. So why don't we look back at that, talk about it a little bit, talk about some takeaways from each of those individual games, some good things that happened, some bad things that happened, the usual thing that we usually do in weekly recap. So let's jump back to last Monday, hop back into that Yapping Yankees time machine for the second time this season. Let's go. All right, my friends, we are certainly making better time this week than we did last week, that's for sure. My God, what a marathon last week. Before we get started with the recap, I do want to thank all of you, before we go any further, for sticking around and listening to last week's show, especially if you listen to the whole thing. I think the episode was like an hour 58 or an hour 59. Certainly one of my longer Yapping Yankees episode, if not the absolute longest. I'm pretty sure I may have crossed the 2-hour time length at one point or another. But regardless, it still goes down as one of my longest ever. And that means a lot because this is the 216th episode. There's not just like 10 episodes of Yapping Yankees, and that doesn't mean a lot. There's 216 episodes now. And of all of them, that was undoubtedly one of my longest. And if you made it through that entire episode, or even just like a fraction of it, God bless you, man. I can't appreciate you enough. Especially in today's world where people's attention spans are like that of a moth. It just makes it that much more impressive and makes me appreciate you that much more as a listener and a loyal fan of mine. Because, again, I can't comprehend it because, like, who am I? Honestly, that's what I always ask myself. And I do have people out there who love me and my show so much to the point where they would listen to an hour and 59 minutes of me just yapping on and on. Like, it's unbelievable to me. But I just wanted to give a sincere thank you for that in case you were one of those people. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for sticking with me amidst last week's catch-up session and everything we had to talk about, all the extensive topics and whatnot. It means the world to me, guys. But regardless, back to the task at hand. Let's go back to last Monday, 6 days ago, where the Yankees kicked off a series in the Bronx against the Marlins after finishing up the weekend against the Blue Jays. Nice 2 out of 3 series victory there. Well, the same thing would take place against the Marlins in the Bronx, starting with a very encouraging, fun, and relaxing for once victory on Monday, with Nestor Cortes taking the mound. And of course, Nestor took the mound in today's game in Cleveland. Did not have a fraction of the success that he did in this game, because in this game, he went 8 shutout innings, one of his better starts in his entire starting pitching career, without a doubt. 8 innings, no runs, 2 hits. Only 2 hits given up, and both of them were to the same guy, De La Cruz. So if not for him, would have been no hits through 8 innings. No walks, didn't even walk anybody, and 6 strikeouts. You want to talk about being composed, locked in? Nestor Cortes in this start. Now, attribute it to the fact that, now especially because of his other starts, one can say that it's just because it's the Marlins. Attribute it to the fact that it might be the Marlins, but even the fact that it is the Marlins and they have had as piss poor of a start to the season as they have, and only having 1 win going into this game at the time, you could attribute it to whatever you want. But having this kind of a start, regardless of who you're facing, is no easy task. 8 shutout innings is tough to do. I don't care who you're facing. So yes, I would probably attribute it at least a little bit to the fact that the Marlins are awful, at least to start the year. But still recognizing how tough of a task it is to do what Nestor managed to do in this outing. So still a phenomenal job by Nestor. Definitely one of his better starts in a long time, at least a couple of years. And the offense, well, they just did their thing. They did what they had to do. Bottom of the 4th, Anthony Volpe, he had hit his 2nd home run of the season. Nice shot into left center field, driving home Stanton and Rizzo. Made it 3-0 as his season just continues to just absolutely bury everyone in his path because he's one of the top hitters in the game right now. That's just a fact of the matter. That's not even any bias talking at all. Just look at the guy's numbers and look at how he's carried himself this year and look at how he's played. It speaks for itself, man. It's unbelievable. And actually, with this home run, I'd actually had a couple of people take some issue with this tweet, which I cannot imagine why. It just goes to show that literally everyone's got something to get bent out of shape over, even something completely as harmless as this. But this swing that he had on this home run, and you could look at it if you haven't seen it yet or you haven't heard this comparison, I was one of the first to raise this, and my tweet about it got like 1,000 likes or something like that, or maybe not far off from that. It got a lot of attention. I was saying that this swing was very reminiscent of Jeter's, especially one in particular that I noticed after thinking about it even further. His 3,000th hit, the home run off David Price. Very similar looks with how Volpe sort of leaned forward towards the pitch, even if it was a low and in breaking ball, sort of like David Price's to Jeter, but still leaned in very similarly, leaned downwards very similarly to that home run that Jeter hit. And the follow-through was nearly identical. Even the way he threw the bat afterwards to the side was nearly identical. It just gave me flashes of the past. And for some reason, some people got bent out of shape because they take any sort of comparison to Jeter at all as people giving Volpe Jeter expectations or expecting him to be Jeter. Like, point out to me where I said that in that tweet. And spoiler alert, you won't be able to because I never did say it anywhere in the tweet. Who gave Volpe Jeter expectations? Who said that Volpe is Jeter? Absolutely no one, that's who. I was just saying that this particular swing in the video that I had even put in the tweet underneath my words was similar and reminiscent to a Jeter swing. I'm telling you, man, people must be going through a tough time out there because the little things that get to everybody, it's really concerning. And I don't even mean to make this into like a life thing, but if that's what's bending you out of shape and you're just misreading or looking far too deep into something that is completely harmless at the end of the day, just like an observation on Twitter, if you're letting that get to you and it's leading to you insulting people, you got to do some self-evaluation, man, because you're probably not in a good place in your life, or you got far too much time on your hands, or you just let things get to you way too easily. I mean, I have a lot of people saying I shouldn't let it get to me, but it's almost amusing to me how just angry everyone is. I get being passionate. Very few are more passionate than me. But there's a massive difference between being passionate and fired up about certain things and going out and actively seeking conflict or trouble, which is something that I very much do not do. I just said that his swing looked a little bit like Jeter's swing, particularly the 3,000th hit. And most even agreed with me so much that they put the two side by side and they saw it for themselves. Like, I don't know, is that such a harmful thing to say? So preposterous or over the top or edgy? Did I say anywhere that Volpe had to be Jeter? So my advice to everyone who said that, and there were a decent amount of people, at least like, I don't know, I'd say at least like 10 people that said that. How did you even read that into it? Like, where did you get that from? Like I said, just looking for trouble and trying to create some where there is absolutely none. But anyway, regardless, very nice home run for Volpe. Very nice to see just the dominant hitting continued. And then not long after that, in the very same inning, in fact, Juan Soto did the very same. Another 3-run shot, his second of the year as well, right down the right field line. Made it 6-0. And at this point, especially with how Nestor was pitching, this made things more than comfortable. Bottom of the fifth, Verdugo added on a run himself. RBI single, driving home Stanton, made it 7-0. And that was the final. So a beautiful outing for Nestor, earning his first victory of 2024. Moving on to Tuesday, to a game that the Yankees would end up winning 3-2. With Rodon starting the game. Rodon yet again looking pretty solid. 6 innings, did give up 4 hits, walked a couple of guys, and struck out 6, so he looked good yet again. Got his first win of the year as a result of this game. And he did give up 2 runs, but neither of them were earned because they came after an Anthony Rizzo error at first base. So, again, the start of a really I'll just say it, oddly bad defensive week for Anthony Rizzo. Just has not looked good at first base defensively this last week or so. Starting with this, really. Just pretty odd. Just having a tough time scooping a lot, and even sometimes just straight up missing some catches. Really weird. I know the guy's aging, but it's still unusual for him. You can't say otherwise. But aside from that, Rodon, again, looked really solid. ERA's nice and low. Looks really good. Ian Hamilton put up 2 scoreless innings after that. Ian Hamilton looks terrific still. Clay Holmes closed the game after him for his 5th save of the year. First 1-2-3 inning in what feels like an eternity for him. So that was interesting because Clay Holmes always usually has to give us all extreme anxiety attacks. But nonetheless, the offense took care of business just enough. And they did their scoring earlier on than the Marlins did, starting off in the bottom of the 2nd with Verdugo hitting his 2nd home run of the year right into the right center field seats. Made it 1-0. Then Giancarlo, who continued to look good earlier on into this past week, sort of faded out a little bit up until today's game at a couple of hits today. One of them nonsensically trying to stretch it into a double. But nonetheless, 2 hits in today's game, but he slowed down a little bit towards the end of the week otherwise. But this double here continued what was already happening in the latter part of the prior week. RBI double driving home Soto made it 2-0. And then Juan Soto himself, speaking of him, always in the middle of the action usually, bottom of the 6th RBI single for him, making it 3-0. Then the Marlins scored their 2 in the top of the 7th. After Rodon had to be taken out and Rizzo had his error. Yanks win 3-2, go for the sweep on Wednesday. They were officially 10-2 after this iconic start to the season. Wednesday, they unfortunately were not able to complete the sweep, however. Marcus Stroman started the game, just didn't really look as sharp as he typically does. It was mainly the 3rd inning where things started to fall apart a bit for him. But otherwise, outside of that, he was walking some guys here and there. He was giving up his hits, his base runners, but he still struck out 7 guys in just 5 innings. Final line, 4 hits, 4 runs, 4 walks. So again, didn't really look 100% sharp in the other innings, but the 3rd inning is really the only inning the Marlins got to him. But it was enough to keep the Yankees down. Luis Arraez got an RBI single, then Jake Berger hit his big 3-run homer, birthday homer. So happy birthday to Berger, I guess, after that. But that was a big blow-off Stroman, and the Yankees never really recovered from that. They did manage to put up 2 runs on the night. In the bottom of the 6th, Stanton hit an Oppo Taco home run for his 4th of the year. That is his most recent home run to this point. So he hasn't hit a home run in a few days. Bottom of the 8th, Juan Soto got an RBI double as well. After Volpe had gotten things started, it looked like the Yankees might have a little bit of a rally cooking, but then Judge struck out. Stanton did walk, but then Rizzo popped out and Glaber struck out, so that was the end of that. Couldn't really capitalize beyond that. This was also, by the way, the first game that saw Anthony Volpe, speaking of him leading off the 8th inning with a clutch walk that would lead to Soto's RBI double and what we hoped for to be a bigger rally. This was the first game that featured Anthony Volpe in the leadoff spot in the lineup, which is something that a lot of us had floated around the idea about for some time now. If Volpe were to take that next step, he could definitely be a solid leadoff guy. I always agreed with that. And since this, it has been a very hot topic of discussion in Yankee land. May or may not have to do with the social media segment. But regardless, this is the first game that featured him in this role. Had a hit on the night, had a couple of walks, did his job that a leadoff hitter is supposed to do, got on base a ton, as he has done in virtually every game this season so far, pretty much. So that was an interesting point. But beyond the Yankees scoring those runs, and then Dennis Santana allowing another in the 9th inning, having the Marlins get a 5-2 lead, well, that would be enough to take out the Yankees on the night, even though they made the bottom of the 9th a little interesting with John Birdie getting an infield single. This was the ground ball I was talking about that must have resulted in that groin injury. Then Volpe walked again. Soto walked after that. And then Aaron Judge had just missed a pitch on the inner portion of the plate and flown out to center to end the game. There was definitely something controversial after this that I'm not even going to give a lot of attention to on this show because it is too, hell, I'll be blunt, too stupid to dedicate too much time to. But there was a certain sports talk radio host who I've made it very obvious and very apparent that I am not a fan of in the least. As a matter of fact, I think he is probably the worst sports talk show host to ever be on the air in New York sports radio, if I'm being really honest with you. There have been some bad ones, but this guy's up there if he's not at the very top. Mr. Sal Licata led a charge on the walking corpse that happens to be WFAN Sports Radio in the midday show. Decided to go out there and say that Juan Soto walking here was a problem because he is paid. He is paid to get a hit there. That this is what he makes the big bucks for, and what he is hoping to continue to make the big bucks over, even more so after his free agency stint this offseason, is that he is paid to swing the bat and get a hit, a big hit in a big situation there for the Yankees. Now, you would think that Soto just swung and missed and embarrassingly struck out on a pitch in the dirt, which there were a few pitches in the dirt in this at-bat. A few pitches that were visibly outside the strike zone, and we all know that Juan Soto does not expand his strike zone hardly ever. But you would think that he did something that goes against the base responsibility of what a hitter is supposed to do. And that is first and foremost, get on base. Now, there are a lot of different other things a hitter could do that align with what they're supposed to do typically. They could get a hit. They could walk. They could get an extra base hit. They can get a home run. And depending on the situation, said home run or said hit may be even more amplified or even more important. But the base job of a hitter is to get on base. What, may I ask you, is the name of this sport? I'll give you a second. That's right, kids. It's baseball.
Holy crap!
I know, Frank Barone. It's hard to believe. Who would have thought that was the name of the sport? And that one of the many responsibilities of the hitter, but the base and core objective for a hitter is to get on base. Which is what Soto did. And he passed the baton onto the modern day Babe Ruth, essentially. Regardless of how Judge may be struggling, even though those struggles are greatly amplified as well because he's still coming through with the occasional big hit like he did with the home run today, and he is still reaching base a vast amount of the time via walks. He is taking his walks, which is a good sign. So even those struggles, while they are there, they are greatly exaggerated. Greatly exaggerated. And we're pretending like he's not going to bounce back so long as he's healthy. But now we have resorted to going after Juan Soto for not expanding his strike zone and not swinging the bat at pitches that are clearly outside of said strike zone, maybe even in the dirt like we saw in this at-bat, and taking a walk. So you're telling me, Mr. Sal Licata, employed on the midday show on the biggest sports talk radio station in New York, that you would rather Juan Soto expand his strike zone if need be, which therefore also probably decreases the chance of getting a hit successfully. You'd rather him do that and risk making an out on a bad pitch than him walking and handing the bat off to Aaron Judge. Struggling or not, I don't care. Aaron Judge. I have seldom ever heard a dumber take as long as I am walking this earth. I try not to say this too often because it's a rude thing to say. And I'm sure he worked hard to get here. But there's no excuse for takes like this. I truly don't know how people with these kind of opinions are employed on sports talk radio, let alone something as humongous as the position that he has at WFAN. I cannot understand how you can claim to be knowledgeable in sports if you are out here going after a player, Juan Soto no less, for getting on base and continuing a rally. and not expanding his strike zone. This is literally who Juan Soto has always been. He has always been someone to completely control nearly every at-bat he's ever had and completely control the strike zone, have a better eye than almost anyone on the planet. And you're going after him for walking instead of getting a hit and maybe trying to force a hit on a pitch that really probably isn't even very hittable, therefore decreasing his chances to get said hit instead of giving Aaron Judge a chance with the bases loaded on a pitch that he did not miss by much, mind you. Maybe just jammed him a tiny bit. I usually don't like to waste much of any time on mind-numbingly, incomprehensibly stupid opinions like this, guys. But I couldn't help myself here because I could not believe that someone actually took to New York sports radio airwaves, especially ones of the magnitude of WFAN, and expects to be taken seriously whatsoever when having an opinion as brain dead as this one. The guy got on base, he did his job, and he is being attacked for it. I don't even know what world we live in anymore, guys. I'm at a loss for words completely at this point. I don't understand. I don't want to understand. Because if I understand, that means I'm as insane as he is. Unbelievable. I get the intended argument, but it's stupid. I don't know how else to say it. It's just stupid. So, that's that. Anyways, let's move on to Friday, or I should say Saturday, because Thursday was an off day for the Yankees, and then Friday they were rained out. So Saturday the Yankees had a twin bill. They had a doubleheader, and it was an eventful day. It was a fun day, because yesterday they ended up winning both games. But Clark Schmidt started the first game, ended up going 5 innings, allowed 3 hits, 2 runs, 1 of them earned, allowed 5 walks, but did strike out 7. So he was a little bit all over the place, especially with those 5 walks. That is definitely not anything to be proud of on your final line. But he still did manage to go 5 innings, which seems to be some sort of a mental hurdle for him, I got to be honest with you. The thought of the 5th and 6th inning just really seemed to freak him out. Definitely some sort of a mental block, whether it be that inning in itself or going through the order for a 3rd time, but the guy just falls apart. And you're going to have to figure that out a little bit if you expect to be any sort of a respectable starter in Major League Baseball. I hate to be that blunt, but if it's going to be that much of an issue for you, you got to start to figure that out a little bit. Because the Yankees need you to go deep into games at least every once in a while. And I know a lot of starting pitchers don't go deep into games anymore, but especially with this Yankee team when they're without their ace, their workhorse, it's that much more important to make sure you go as deep into games as you can to prevent burning the bullpen too much. It's just something that you got to try to do. It's got to be a mindset thing. Has to be. I'm not in Schmidt's shoes, so I don't know for sure, but it's got to be some sort of a mindset thing because it's like clockwork. Almost every start, the 5th inning, the 6th inning, or the 3rd time around the order, the guy falls apart, and he has to be taken out. Now, unfortunately for him, both of the runs that scored, they were both his responsibility, but one was unearned because of a big-time error by Gleyber Torres, and if not for this error, no runs had to score at all. This is just one of many instances that we've been talking about with Gleyber Torres in the field and how he's just gotten off to an overall slow start on every end of baseball, of his game, and this is just one of them. But it was a double play ground ball by Tyler Freeman, and he had stepped on the bag at second for 1, and the throw to first was just, to say it was offline is silly. It was a horrible throw, and it resulted in 2 runs scoring, 1 unearned for Schmidt, of course, and that was that, really. No other runs allowed by Ferguson, who was pitching at the time. Schmidt wasn't even on the mound when that happened. Ferguson was pitching. Ian Hamilton pitched another 2 scoreless innings phenomenally. And Clay Holmes gave up a leadoff double in this one to give us all a heart attack in the 9th inning, but he would end up getting the save, striking out 2, his 6th save, so Another nice job by Clay Holmes. Thanks again for another mini heart attack. Nonetheless, the job got done. But that was Schmidt's final line and some more sloppy infield defense, this time by Gleyber Torres. The only 2 runs the Guardians would get. Otherwise, the 3 runs the Yankees managed to score in their 3-2 victory was driven home. The first one was in the top of the second on a double play ball by Trent Grisham, who just had an awful, awful day at the plate. First time playing in about 10 days, and I understand that not getting consistent playing time may hurt and get someone rusty, and they may not have the best of days. But my God, it sort of reinforced the idea for some why he has been riding the bench. But, I mean, he was never really known for his offense in particular outside of really the wild card series with the Mets and Padres, because he just kicked the Mets' ass in that series. I will never forget that. But nonetheless, not really known for his offense much at all otherwise. And this game, 2 double plays, one being this one, and the other with the bases loaded again, but with 1 out. Unlike this time, there were no outs, so a double play drove home a run. But there was 1 out the next time, so resulted in killing a big Yankee rally at that point, too, when it could have been much worse. So 2 double plays with the bases loaded. And he ended up having a strikeout, too, and then a deep fly out. But at first 3 at-bats, putrid for Grisham. But the first double play drove in a run, and then Oswaldo on a 2-run shot in the top of the 6th just continues to kick ass himself, my God. Put the Yankees up 3-0 after that 2-run shot, and after the Guardians scored their 2 runs on Gleyber's throwing error, the final score would be 3-2 Yankees, winning the first of the Twin Bill, going 11-3. And they would advance to 12-3 after their nice Game 2 victory, in which Cody Poteet started. And like I alluded to earlier, what else can I say about Cody Poteet? The guy was, I would say, predicted to pitch maybe, I don't know, maybe like 3-4 innings, not go really too deep into the game. And Luis Gil was expected to get some throwing out of the bullpen after he was done. And the 2 of them would combine for a healthy amount of innings for a starter, maybe 6-7 innings combined or so, maybe even more, depending on if either of them was really good. But the Yankees never even ended up having to use Gil because Poteet was just that good. Whether or not he was given big leads, even early on when the lead wasn't that big, it was only 2-0 until the 4th, he was still looking fantastic, and he didn't even give up a run until the bottom of the 5th, when Estevan Florial, of all people, ended up hitting a home run off of him. But other than that, 6 innings of 1-run baseball, 6 hits, no walks, very much in control, and 4 strikeouts. Cody Poteet looked terrific. Again, first win in well over 1,000 days. It's a hell of an accomplishment on his journey back to Major League Baseball after so much time away. And if you don't know his story, he was with the Marlins in 2021 and 2022. He appeared in 12 games in 2022 and started 2 of them. And then in 2022, he had to get, shocker here, Tommy John surgery. And he was down for a while. And he had just returned. A long journey back, guys. Long, long journey. First win in that much time. He wasn't away for that much time. He had been on the injured list until the start of 2024 since July of 2022, I want to say. So a long journey back and first victory in that much time. Devastating. But my God, did he shine in this game, and it was awesome to see. Gave the Yankees much more than they ever could have asked for, no doubt about that. So it was just great to see. Never even had to use Gil, and that's why Gil is starting in tomorrow night's game against the Blue Jays. But what an outing for Cody Poteet. Cannot say it enough. He looked absolutely terrific. And then after him, coming out of the bullpen, you had Dennis Santana and Ron Marinaccio, not looking too hot in the bottom of the 9th inning, as always. But Dennis Santana looked pretty good. 2 shutout innings, only a walk and a strikeout. And otherwise, the offense definitely did their thing. Anthony Rizzo, top of the 1st, RBI single. Beautiful piece of hitting, reaching down low to go down and get a low pitch. Just smacked it right into right field. 1-0. Giancarlo walked with the bases juiced. Made it 2-0. Top of the 4th, Anthony Volpe kept it going. RBI single made it 3-0. Then Juan Soto with his third home run of the year, a 3-run shot to dead center field. Hits him to left, hits him to right, hits him to center, hits everything everywhere. It doesn't matter. 3-run shot driving home Verdugo and Volpe. Volpe and Soto at the top of that lineup is just not fair. It is not fair, but I'm glad it is happening on my team, man. So third home run of the year for him made it 6-0. An RBI double for Waldo in the top of the fifth made it 7-0. And then a sac fly for Austin Wells after that made it 8-0. And other than the Guardians adding on 2 more later in the game, 8-2 victory for the Yankees. They swept the doubleheader. Just an awesome day of baseball yesterday for the Yankees all around. Main pieces of offense, man, primarily. It's still, Rizzo definitely shined a bit offensively this weekend as well, but primarily, it's still Volpe, Soto, and Cabrera. It's crazy. It's crazy how this season has started off with those 3 being right in the middle of the offensive success. And it's just wild how it's all happening. And Judge has done his things here and there, and he's still drawing his walks. He's getting on base, but he still is nowhere near kicked it into full gear yet. And the offense has still done what it has managed to do. It's crazy. I love it. And then you had today's game, last but not least, absolute chaos. Real shame how it ended because it was just nuts. But Judge started off the scoring affair with a 3-run shot. I want to play the clip for you, actually, because you got to hear the sound off the bat. It was very similar to how Giancarlo Stanton's grand slam in the Bronx sounded last week, and just the crack of the bat on these balls that are hit by these behemoths. I just never heard anything like it. It's an amazing sound. Let's listen to Aaron Judge's home run. Of course, audio courtesy of the Yes Network. Go ahead and take a listen. Take this in.
That stays through the strike zone as Aaron Judge absolutely demolishes one to left field. Wow.
Oh my gosh, I could listen to that all day. The crack of the bat, I could listen to all day. Not so much after that, but I just have to say something else right now. Again, I may joke around, I may make my comments, but I don't mean this as any sort of negativity or hate, really, at all. Because I really respect all of the S Network crew. And I have tweeted this, I've said it for years, but I'll say it again here, and you could probably hear it in that clip again. I'm going to be playing another clip for you shortly, so you'll hear it yet again. But I'm sorry, man. John Flaherty cannot be on play-by-play anymore. A lot of people, and I had one person say, oh my God, you're complaining about the broadcast of all things when the Yankees are doing as good as they're doing. First of all, that has nothing to do with anything. I went to school for broadcasting. I was in the radio industry for about 5 years. I, by nature, even on top of doing this, am a broadcaster. I have an ear for it. I have a knack for it. So I tend to pay attention to it more than the average viewer or listener, probably. So just because it doesn't mean much to you doesn't mean it doesn't mean much to anybody else. So that's first of all. Not a complaint, just an observation based off of what I'm hearing. Again, another instance of people getting all bent out of shape over a simple observation, even one that I said that there is no hate meant towards it or anything. Doesn't seem to matter given that disclaimer anymore. People will still get bent out of shape over it. But anyway, I'll just keep giving my opinions about it because that's all we can do in this world. You don't have to like it. But John Flaherty cannot be on play-by-play anymore. The guy is just too monotone. And he's not as quick with it either. You have to be quicker. You have to get into it. It's play-by-play. Big things are happening in real time. Get into it. Get loud. Get the voice inflection going. That's just part of that job. And it's just not something Flash is really able to do, unfortunately. Whether it be because his voice is not strong enough or just, even if that's his personality, maybe it's just not how he gets. Maybe he's more reserved, more to himself, maybe just a calmer person. And that's fine. I'm not saying there's anything bad about that, but it's just not cut out for play-by-play. Maybe more of a color guy. Because the guy's a great analyst. The guy's baseball knowledge is infinite. This is where my positive talk of him comes in. Baseball knowledge, analysm, everything. Fantastic. He's phenomenal. He's terrific on the pre- and post games. He's even good really on the sideline whenever he's done some sideline reporting for the Yankees. All that is all good. And all of us have our things that we're good at and that we're not good at. And that's totally fine. Nobody's good at absolutely everything in the world. Nobody. So again, not meant as hate towards John Flaherty, but the guy does not belong on play-by-play. And I know like 99% of people agree with me, and I've been saying it for years. And unfortunately, hearing him do road games makes me miss a presence like Ken Singleton all that much more, because he used to do the vast majority of road games, especially West Coast games. He even did some home games at times with Michael Kay and whatnot, but primarily those West Coast games, or even just most road games, and you just hear, this one is gone, or look out. Like, I just miss that. Like, I miss that on-air presence. And even more so when I hear, unfortunately, someone who's just flat, like Flash on play-by-play. It's tough. It's tough. I feel bad talking like that because I really like John Flaherty. I think he's a really cool guy. I respect his baseball knowledge and the fact that he was a player beyond. I really, really do. It's just I don't think he's cut out for play-by-play. I don't. If you happen to like his play-by-play, well, more power to you then. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I don't think John Flaherty belongs on play-by-play. Put him on color, leave him on the pre- and post games, even have him do some sideline stuff. Stick to him being an analyst, which is what he's fantastic at. Just not play-by-play anymore. Please, Yes Network. Because when something crazy is going on, believe it or not, as stupid as it might sound to some people, having an announcer who is absolutely losing his mind, your home broadcast, the play-by-play guy losing his mind in a huge moment, it adds to the moment. It does add to it. And upon hearing Flash, you do understand what I mean. When during a big moment, you hear someone talk like he does, it just like, it brings it down a little bit. It does. I'm sorry. I don't want to offend him or anything. I don't. That's not my intention here. It's just I wish they would wean him off play-by-play. Just my opinion. Thought I'd say that, especially since I played that clip for you and you heard it for yourself. But that's my 2 cents on the whole play-by-play thing. But did you hear the crack off the bat nonetheless? My God, I know it was tough because they were in the middle of talking, but still just unbelievable. The sound of the bat on the ball when Judge and Stanton make solid contact. Amazing. And other than that, the rest of the story really was, aside from the chaos, Nestor Cortes started the game, following up his unbelievable Marlins start. And there was nothing unbelievable about this game, unfortunately. At least not in a good way. Because bro only went 4 innings. And tried to go into the 5th, but it did not work out. And all I got to say is that with the inconsistency that continues with Nestor, I'm very happy with the Marlins start. Gave my credit where credit was due before. But aside from that, he has not gone deep into games. He's not gone deep into games for some time now, even going back to last year. 4 innings is just not going to cut it. Sorry. It's not good enough. And he gets himself into a lot more trouble sometimes than he has to. He even mentioned it in his interview, I believe, sometimes. He just tries to hit the corners a little bit too much and try to be a little too perfect. Doesn't throw as many strikes as he should. Maybe tries to get a little too cute. And he ends up creating more work for himself than is necessary. That's how a lot of pitchers run into trouble a lot of the time. Nestor's got to start doing a little bit less of that. I loved his little funky delivery today. The new thing that they introduced were like fake through the ball while dropping down at the same time. Really weird stuff. But nonetheless, as far as trying to get too cute or nail the corners too much, it just didn't work today. Still struck out 6 guys, did only walk 1, but the 4 runs, 1 took place when he wasn't even on the mound anymore. But honestly, the way he was pitching in the 5th inning and the way that he pitched today, he kind of deserved to have that last one tacked on to him, not going to lie. But regardless, 4 innings just not going to cut it. They're not. Started out looking pretty good, but then it fell off. In the bottom of the 3rd, Jose Ramirez hit a 2-run shot off him. Tried the changeup on him because he struck him out on that to begin with in the first at-bat, but it did not work in this at-bat. Caught too much of the plate. So 2-run shot there. Then Jose Trevino. Do my eyes deceive me? Do I see some offensive production from the Yankees catching position between him and Austin Wells? Not much going on there with the bats, but Trevino, he actually didn't look brutal this weekend at all at the plate. Pretty solid at bats, solid contact. I'll give it to him. I've gotten on him when it says that even though he's not known for his offense primarily, outside of his outlier 2022, I know that he's usually a chore at the plate, and I've mentioned as much, but I give credit where credit's due too, man. And this weekend, he looked pretty good. Big home run there. Then Gabriel Arias hit a tank job the opposite way off a Nestor Cortez fastball in the bottom of the fifth. That's when additional trouble started to happen in the fifth. Nestor did not make it through, of course, didn't even get an out in the fifth, hence the 4+ innings. And then when he had left the game and Josh Naylor got his RBI single to tie the game, obviously Nestor was not on the mound, but the run was his responsibility. So it was tied up at 4 as of the 5th inning, and the Yankee bullpen had to take control from there. The Yankee offense went a bit quiet until the bottom of the 8th, as I mentioned before, when Luke Weaver was on the mound. And it's a shame because before this, Nick Birdie had looked pretty good, Victor Gonzalez was pitching well, and Weaver up until this at-bat was pitching well, having struck out 3 in just an inning and 2/3 and whatnot. But Estevan Florial comes to the plate with the game tied. And as I had said earlier in the show, Estevan Florial has always had a great deal of trouble with breaking balls or off-speed pitches of any kind. So what does Luke Weaver do? Makes a mistake pitch, and the pitch calling makes no sense with the fastball either, but puts one right in his wheelhouse with a fastball, the only thing he's ever been able to hit in the major leagues, and he just crushes it into right field to put the Guardians in the lead. But then, from what I said before, the Yankees offense, the 2024 Yankees, the game is not over until it's over. Because Emmanuel Clase came in to close the game in the top of the 9th, one of the game's best closers, let alone arms, period. And he allows one little base runner in the top of the 9th to get things started, that being on a Jose Trevino single. Then Oswaldo Cabrera grounded into a force out. So, runner on, 2 outs down to the last out too. My shortstop, my amazing, glorious, newly improved shortstop, comes to the plate and on a 100-mile-per-hour cutter on the outer part of the plate does this.
Hard hit to right field. Brennan not able to come up with it. It goes all the way to the wall. Cabrera around third and coming home. And we're all tied up. Anthony Volpe comes through big time.
All right, the energy was a little bit better on that flash. I'll give that to him. But aside from that, my God, what a massive hit. Again, just trying not to do too much with it, staying in and just putting the bat out, putting the bat to ball, and just lacing it to right center field. He had a lot of hits like this that actually turned out to be unbelievable catches by the Cleveland outfielders, just right at somebody, even with the outs he made. Hence talking about earlier how he's hit actually into a little bit of bad luck despite his hit still being phenomenal. But this one, what a hit to tie the game, to add on to what has already been an unbelievable early part of the season for Anthony Volpe, one of the better hitters in the sport right now, as we have said. Bottom of the 9th, Clay Holmes came in, did his job. Top of the 10th, Anthony Rizzo, after messing up another scoop attempt in the bottom of the 9th, comes through in the top of the 10th with the bases loaded, 2-run single to put the Yankees ahead 7-5. And I wish I could say that that was enough to do the job, but it was not. I would have liked for the Yankees to have pushed across at least another run as well, because Glaber had moved up the runners on the bunt. And then Verdugo hit one to first. There was a play at home, ended up being out, but Verdugo stalled down the line and did not continue running down to first base, and it ended up being an embarrassing double play. So another run could have definitely been forced across at some point or another, but it wasn't. And then the Guardians, again, mainly because of the infield defense, Volpe had bobbled the ball in a double play attempt, and then on a play at the plate, ground ball right to Glaber, bobbled the ball twice. If he'd only even bobbled it once, the play at the plate would have still been successful. But bobbled it twice, did not get the out at home, and then it resulted in, after a couple of runs scoring for the Guardians, resulted in Andres Jimenez hitting a walk-off sac fly, which would have been the final out of the game had the play at the plate been successful on Glaber's throw. So, all eyes on Glaber, obviously after his tougher week, didn't really do much with the bat at all, and made a number of mistakes defensively, as did much of the Yankee infield in general between Rizzo and I think even Waldo made a mistake at one point this past week, and Volpe made his couple of silly mistakes, but I mean, hey, he's doing what he's doing. But still, Very irritating, chaotic end to the game today, but I'm choosing to just remember the fact the Yankees won the series. They still showed unbelievable fight and resilience, and I'm walking away with that. Let's move on to Toronto, baby. As far as I'm concerned. Calmer now, that's how I'm choosing to look at it. And speaking of Toronto, rest of the week as to what to expect going forward. Monday, the 15th, tomorrow, the Yankees head to Toronto. Them and their 12-4 record will take on the 8-8 Blue Jays. 7:07 Eastern, Luis Gil against Chris Bassett in Toronto. 7:07 game as well. On Tuesday the 16th, it'll be Carlos Rodon against Kikuchi. And Wednesday, the final of the 3-game set in Toronto will be at 3:07 in the afternoon. Marcus Stroman against Kevin Gausman. So the Yankees look to at least take another series, hopefully in Toronto. Thursday, day off. Friday, the Yankees return home against the Tampa Bay Rays. 7:05 p.m. Eastern game on Friday. No starting pitchers announced as of yet for any of these games, of course. 7:05 in the Bronx, Yankees-Rays. 1:05 on Saturday the 20th in the Bronx, Yankees-Rays, obviously. And rounding off the 3-game set in the Bronx between the Rays and Yanks. Next Sunday the 21st, when we will yap again. 1:35 Eastern. So you got a couple of vital AL East versus AL East matchups this week for the Yankees. And to finish off the show, as always, let's move on to our social media segment. The topic, like I had hinted at before, happens to do with our glorious shortstop. It was a topic of discussion this past week amidst the change that was made in the middle of the week when Aaron Boone decided to make a change to the lineup. He chose to make Anthony Volpe the leadoff hitter, which is something that we have all fantasized about for some time now when Anthony Volpe were to take that next step. He has more than done that, as we know. So in light of this, my question, since this was a big topic this week, was, are you okay with Volpe's move to the leadoff spot, or would you have rather Boone keep everything the same, since it wasn't necessarily broken before, so some people might argue, don't fix what isn't broken, but my God, I am fully fine with the move, I gotta be honest with you. Not even just with hindsight now, after today's game, but even before that. If Glaber was doing unbelievably in the leadoff spot, I probably would have just waited a little bit longer. Eventually, Volpe was always going to be the leadoff guy, so eventually I want that. But especially since Glaber wasn't doing anything and I was confident in Volpe's ability to just continue doing what he's doing no matter where he's at, especially taking that to the leadoff spot, getting on base as often as he is, was totally cool with the move, especially am totally cool with the move, even more so now, in hindsight. So quite frankly, this whole time I've been cool with it, and I still am, even more so now. So that's where I'm at with all of it, because he may have had his hitting stall a little bit in the last 2 days at times. I mean, today just tore the cover off the ball. At the end of the Marlins series, maybe a little bit quieter, a tiny bit. But even at that point, and even at some points in yesterday's games, when he maybe wasn't getting as many hits necessarily, he was still scorching the ball, so nothing changed mechanically in his swing, just results-wise. He was still tearing the cover off the ball, and he had been reaching base a ton on walks, and stealing a lot of bases, mind you, as well. So he's still been doing his thing. So going to the leadoff spot doesn't change anything for me. Totally cool with it, and I'm glad with the outcome that it's gotten, because now, with the way that Volpe continues to produce, him, Soto, and especially Judge when he does kick it into full gear, that's a 1-3 that shouldn't even be legal. Should not even be allowed in the sport. So that's my answer. Let's hear what you guys had to say. At Jess Lipson says, my hope is he would be full-time leadoff halfway through the year and hit lower in the lineup until then. I feel like this move is a bit premature just because he's still so young, but I would love to be wrong. In parentheses, so far I am. Yeah, fair enough. And so far you are, yeah. Just had that confidence that no matter where he was, he would keep this up. Just unbelievable. At Craig B212 says, no-brainer. He's a leadoff guy. Love it. Absolutely love it. At Benjamin Leisure says, I like it. My thought on it is that he's likely let off on every team he's played on in his life until last year. He's comfortable there. He looks at home, and he gets the job done of working counts and scoring runs. I didn't want to do the switch, but glad we did. Yeah, that's fine. Listen, it's totally cool to admit that. Not everybody can be right off the bat. Pun intended, but listen, it's working out now. That's the most important thing. Rebecca at Peace Now for Life says, I'm more than okay with it. He gets on, steals bases, and gives RBI opportunities to the big bats. Absolutely love his new approach. Yeah, the approach is just everything. Again, even his outs are tough. They're hard hit. They're competitive at bats. It's just amazing. It's amazing. He took that step and beyond that we were all praying that he would take. And predicting that he would take. A lot of us said that we expected him to really take that next step in his sophomore year, but he has taken it and then some, to say the very least. So yeah, definitely providing RBI opportunities, driving in RBIs himself, getting it done on the bases, absolutely. At Fantasy Furnace says, absolutely thrilled he moved him to the one hole. He's been and will be going to be the prototypical leadoff hitter. Volpe, through hard work, has become a contact hitter with power and speed. Hopefully, Booney leaves him just where he is. Torres was just a stopgap for DJ. Definitely potentially a reason, for sure. And Glaber not really starting off the season doing all that much makes it an easier move to pull the trigger on. But yeah, for sure. I mean, he is the prototypical leadoff hitter. And I'm glad he's having so much success in it right away. At Laura_Icemont, my good friend Laura, says, I'm okay with it. I've always seen him moving up in the lineup as he gets more experience. As long as he keeps doing what he's doing, the leadoff spot will belong to him for years to come. Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, for a few years now, the Yankees have struggled to find a true leadoff hitter since DJ has started to regress a bit. And if this is how Volpe's going to be, you definitely found your leadoff hitter for the better part of the next 15-ish years or so. Maybe even more so. We'll see what happens. But for sure. And that would be lovely. Up next, we have Spencer at Musician DMD, my good friend Spencer. It's good to hear from you, buddy. He says, with Volpe's speed and his versatility as a hitter, I think the Yankees will score a lot more runs with him leading off. Yankees fans will feel uncomfortable with this move at first, but needs time to grow into it. Well, it seems like he didn't need that much time. He's just gotten right into it here. But yeah, for sure. Totally agree, Spence. And I did want to give you a shout out. I did want to give another little bit of attention to Spencer here. He absolutely deserves it. For those who don't know, the fight to have Spencer's eyesight restored is still ongoing. And his videos that he continues to post on Twitter I mean, what can I say, Spencer? You just continue to be an inspiration, man. Your positive outlook on everything despite what you're going through. And the hope that your eyesight will return, which of course we all hope for the same. One of the greatest Yapping Yankees fans and listeners out there, without a doubt. So loyal, so loving, and so interactive with the show at all times, and so supportive. But we all hope that your fight will obviously continue to yield more hopeful and better results for you, my friend. But I did want to give a shout out because Spencer did let everybody know that he did, in fact, because I had mentioned this on the show a little while back, I believe, a few weeks ago maybe, that Spencer was looking to make it to opening day, and he had mentioned it on Twitter and asked people to spread the word, try to get the word to the Yankees or anybody with high importance over there to try to still make it happen, because our guy Spencer here is a long-time season ticket holder at Yankee Stadium, and he has been to a lot of opening days consecutively for a lot of years, and he wanted to make sure that continued this year. I, of course, took part in this. I quote-tweeted his tweet and added the Yankees in it. Did everything I could and tried to spread the word like so many others did, and Spencer did end up making it to opening day, and he, of course, has thanked endless amounts of people for helping to make that happen, for even doing as little as spreading the word. And Spencer, what can I say other than it's the least I could have done, brother? For all the support you've given me, even amidst your battle to still be listening to Yapping Yankees every week, even when you were in the heat of everything, please, quote-tweeting something. It's the absolute least I could do for you, man. I'm just so thrilled you made it to opening day. I'm honored that you're still listening to Yapping Yankees every week, and you're even still through your family replying to my social media segments. You continue to leave me speechless, man. Just God bless you and your family. And even my mom, I should say, has been praying very hard for you. My mom is really religious, and she has been praying very hard for you, Spencer, just so you're aware of that. I explained the situation to my mom personally outside of just what I've said here on this show, and we're all just hoping for absolutely nothing but the complete and utter best for you, my friend. Best of luck on your continued fight, my man. Keep on fighting hard. Keep on being the inspiration that you are. And we can't hear from you enough. We really can't. Keep on giving us updates and keep on replying to the Yapping Yankees social media segment, man, through your family, your beautiful family. It's just such an honor when you get to actually meet people like this. They are few and far between, unfortunately, in this world, despite how many people do walk the earth. People as special and rare as Spencer are still very hard to find, nonetheless. So, my friend, congratulations to you. I couldn't be happier that you made it to opening day with you and your family like you absolutely deserve to. And hopefully you're enjoying this start like the rest of us are, man. 12-4. They're certainly giving you and the rest of us something to be happy about, huh? My gosh. And please, when you guys get the chance, let me know if you guys happen to make it to Yankee Stadium again. Give me some dates. And maybe we'll try to make something happen, Spencer, because I would love to finally be able to meet you and your lovely family. That's for sure. I would love that. So keep that in mind, and we'll definitely figure something out, my friend. At Crusaders BBNY says, absolutely not. I don't understand why they messed around with the lineup. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Consistency. I do know there are people out there with this opinion, but you got to have faith that Volpe can keep it going, and hey, he very much has. So hopefully, especially in light of today's game, some people have changed their thoughts on this. I know some people have replied to this after the game ended because this was only posted maybe an hour before game time today. And then Volpe ended up doing what he did, of course. But at Baseball Tzar says, I don't care if Bozo the Clown leads off as long as we win. Yeah, of course, winning is all that matters at the end of the day. It is. But especially, again, like I said before, Gleyber not really doing much in the leadoff spot to begin with that he was in for the first 2 weeks or so, give or take. It made the move that much easier, and with how good Volpe looked, just the confidence in the move is there. At Mike B _923 says, having one of the best base contact hitters and base stealers at the top of the lineup is the way to go. That's why the former shortstop and Yankee captain batted leadoff or second for many years. Well, be careful, Mike. You might be accused of calling Volpe Jeter or giving him Jeter expectations. Be careful, my man. But yeah, you're right. That's a leadoff hitter's job. Get on base, make stuff happen, set up the big guys, and maybe even just do damage yourself, as Volpe has too. At Cashman Sucks NYY says, Torres wasn't hitting. Well, yeah, like I said, that certainly made it easier. At Jason Marcachuli, hope I pronounced that name. That's really tough, Jason. Take one more crack at it. Jason Marcachili, something like that. I don't know. They're winning games, so it's hard to critique. Yeah, completely, Jason. Like the other guy said, all that matters is winning. It's true. At B Welch 1943 says, Volpe has all the right tools for a leadoff hitter. That he does. At Stevie Egg says, absolutely. That's where he's projected to end up at some point anyway on this team, and he's played well enough that he should be near the top. Agreed. At Yankee Ken says, Volpe belongs in the leadoff spot. He takes pitches, gets on base. He hasn't looked overwhelmed by the move at all. He should be our leadoff hitter for years to come. That's exactly what I was saying. Totally get it. At Craig Schmidt 2 says, he's getting on base. Torres is not. Yeah, definitely getting on base more than Gleyber, that's for sure. No doubt there. At The Hitter Sports says, tough because he's earned the leadoff spot, but you also hate to mess with someone when they're hot. Yeah, ordinarily, yeah, but Volpe has looked so good that, you're just a little bit more confident in it than others. And plus, it's easier to move Torres around because Torres wasn't really hitting much anyway, so maybe a change would be good for him at the very least. But it has worked. Really has. Look at what Volpe's still doing. At Randy in PO says, love it. That's what I love to hear. Next, we've got at BZONG3 says, Volpe has been on fire. It's hard to argue with this move so far. That it is. All right, let's just do a few more because we're already about an hour 40 in here. Wow, time got away from me again. Would you look at that? What a shocker. At Raf321 says, I think Torres should lead off. All right, fair enough. I'd be interested to hear why, based off of how he was doing earlier on and how Volpe looks in the leadoff spot right away since the transition. I'd love to hear your reasoning why. At Stevie B22 says, fine with it. I think it was a good move. Yeah, same here. At Michael Eddy 6 says he's the perfect leadoff hitter at the moment. Takes pitches, walks, high average, makes contact, fast. When DJ's back, he could hit second and bump everyone else back a spot. Yeah, I don't know. I think I would move DJ to like 6 or 7 to start off. Because aside from how dominant and overwhelming a combination Volpe and Soto seem in themselves at the top of the lineup, just because of how talented they are to begin with, it also creates that nice balanced right to left approach, and I don't want to mess with that. Volpe, Soto, Judge is like the perfect 1 through 3. I really don't want to mess with that at all if I'm the Yankees or if I'm in charge of the Yankees lineup. So that's how I feel about that. Not sure if you agree, but that is how I feel. All right, final 2. Actually, you know what? My mom's boyfriend Jack actually replied to this as well. So, Jack, I'll include you in this as well. So, final 3. And first up is my mom's boyfriend Jack, saying, I think Volpe was going to have a very good year at the plate to begin with. With that said, Volpe is more comfortable and patient hitting the baseball. Being one of the best hitters in the team right now, Anthony deserves to be the leadoff hitter. Yeah, he's making stuff happen. Doing extreme damage in his own right and setting the table for the big guys too. That is what a leadoff hitter does. Get on base and get it started, for sure. All right, next up, my girlfriend at Vic Salimo says, Volpe has proven that he deserves the spot. As long as he's hot in the leadoff spot, you keep him there. Yeah, and he has definitely been that so far, babe, that's for sure. All right, last but certainly not least, as always, is my mom, Julia Gina Scudero, and she says, I'm still hurting from witnessing how today's game ended. Refocusing now, as for your question, I still think changing Volpe to first on the lineup is brilliant. He's hitting the best of them right now, so I think they made an awesome choice. Very happy with this team overall right now, but today's game's ending was hard to digest. Let's go Yankees. Yeah, 100%, Mom. Today's game was a very tough ending, for sure. But like I said, a lot of positives, a lot of fight in there, and they still won the series, but yeah, that ending, not ideal, especially because, again, the most irritating loss, no loss is pleasant, but the most irritating one of all that stays with you the longest is when the team that loses beats themselves. And that's what the Yankees infield did in the bottom of the 10th, and that's always annoying. So I definitely hear you there, but now since we're all calmer, able to move forward with a leveled head. But yeah, just keep on moving along, see what happens in the Toronto series, right? Let's go Yankees indeed. But for now, guys, I thank you all so much for interacting with the social media segment. As always, there were definitely people that I missed, but just keep on replying each week, guys. I'll get to you eventually. There are just so many of you, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you for that. But for now, my raspy-ass voice and myself are going to put a nice bow on episode 216 of Yapping Yankees today. Is that okay with you? Because that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now. But before I do so, please remember to follow me on all social medias if you have not already, guys. My Facebook fan page is Mike Scudero NY. My Twitter, or X, is at Mike Scudero. And my Instagram is Mike Scuds97. Please be sure to subscribe to Yapping Yankees on all 4 of the platforms it is available on as well. That is YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And show your love across all 4 of them, like you always do such a great job at doing, my friends. And if you've missed any Yapping Yankees episodes 34 up to episode 216 today are available on YouTube. And every single Yapping Yankees episode going all the way back to the very first, nearly 5 years ago now, all the way to episode 216 today, well, all of those are available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Once again, though, I thank you 3,000 for listening to me yap today. As always, my friends, I have been your host, Mike Scudero, and we shall yap again next Sunday, April 21st, when I come at you with episode 217 of Yapping Yankees. But until then, guys, as always, hang in there, be patient, stay safe, look out for your loved ones. Go ahead and kick life's ass this week, my friends, and hopefully we witness our 12-4 Yankees move on to Toronto and then welcome the Rays into the Bronx and continue to kick some AL East ass and continue this fantastic start to the 2024 season. And especially if they continue to do so. But regardless, my friends, I always look forward to coming right back here to yap some more with you next Sunday. So until then, hopefully my voice will be fully restored after not having to go too crazy during any games. Take care, and let's go Yanks.